we're going to start to see some more foreclosures in Florida because I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And when you're faced with a 6-figure special assessment bill, all I can think about is this is going to end very poorly for a lot of homeowners. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn. Welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Florida real estate market's crash with condos specifically. There are some startling things happening in the Florida real estate market with condos. We're also going to be talking about a major international city that has now banned Airbnbs, and they had more than 10,000 short-term rentals on their platform. And we're going to get into in or out, whether Shawn Battle's in or out on a house in the Northern Virginia area. Shawn, let's start with the Florida condo real estate market. Yeah. And I think this is going to be relevant even if you're not interested in Florida, because a lot of people have moved into Florida and a lot of people move out of Florida. And that affects secondary and tertiary markets having to do with people in the DC area, people in the Northeast, people in the Mid-Atlantic that move to and fro in Florida. Mm-hmm. So let's rewind the clock to 2021, where the Surfside condo collapse at Champlain Towers South happened. Shawn, this was a disaster. 98 people died, a significant tragedy. The building collapsed due to corroded support columns that was caused by water damage, and studies later found that the Champlain Towers South Condo Association was critically underfunded and faced urgent structural repairs. So the association only had about 7% of the recommended level of money to complete the repairs, had about $700K in reserves as of January 2021, when it actually should have had about $10 million in reserves, according to the reserve study recommendation. So following that collapse, Florida approved what's known as the Florida Condominium Safety Bill. Okay, so the bill requires all condo developments that are 3 or more stories, over 30 years old, and I think within 3 miles of the coastline, to undergo inspections, address critical issues, and build up reserve funds for future repairs. That's the big one. Associations must fully fund the reserve fund and use it for future repairs, structural repairs. So that leads us to today, where the condos that have been abiding by the new regulations are doing inspections, and those buildings that are not properly funded are levying massive special assessments on their unit owners. So, Shawn, I want to give you one example and get your thoughts on. This is a condo at Cricket Club in North Miami. Okay, yeah. So It is 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom, about 2,000 square feet. It's nice. It's maybe could use some updating, but it has some issues. First of all, there's 2 existing special assessments. Okay, so these are monthly special assessments that are added to the monthly condo fee. One is $175 a month. One is $160 a month. That go till 2036. Okay, so that makes up the monthly HOA payments of $2,900. Okay, but it doesn't end there, because there's an additional, $15,000 due July 1st of 2024, $15,000 due October 1st, $40,000 due quarterly in 2025, $36,000 due quarterly in 2026, $29,000 due quarterly in 2027. If you're keeping track at home, that's over $100,000 in special assessments in upcoming years. Oh, and they're looking for an all-cash buyer, because there's no way a lender would ever give a mortgage on a property like this.
So this is insane.
The actual value of a property like this is probably in the low $400,000, high $300,000 range. But at this point, what we're looking at is a condo that has lost, let's call it 50% of its value conservatively. And then additionally, there's another 50% of that current value, like 100,000 out of basically 200,000, that is going to be passed on to the buyer, right? Everything's negotiable. The seller could, pay some of this off, but they've steeply discounted the price to get out of it, right? And to get out of the situation. So, Shawn, my question to you is, what are your thoughts? What is going to be happening in the Miami, in the Tampa, in these coastal areas that have, these condo high-rise buildings that, it's nice when you don't have to pay a higher condo fee, but those condo fees are there for a reason, and now some of these buildings are starting to find out why.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this is happening in Florida, but do we know, was this because of the new law that was passed?
Well, probably.
Probably. So this is the scary thing. Like if you think about your house and you have a foundation to your house, you've got to maintain that foundation. If you see leaks, you've got to make sure that you're doing things. This is a humongous condo building that has, call it 350 units in it. And you've got a humongous foundation, not only a foundation, but a foundation close to water. And so you have to be careful and you have to be collecting to build these reserve funds. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is when you're paying a condo fee, you're paying for whatever utilities are in there. You're paying for the cleaning of the hallways, the maintenance of the building, the salaries of the people working there. But what you're also funding is a reserve fund. And when a builder builds a condominium, they set up a reserve fund and they might contribute X amount of dollars to that reserve fund. And then they start contributing. And every month, those 350 owners that are paying X amount of dollars, a percentage of that is going into a reserve fund to build the reserves up so that when these fixes do come up, they have the money to then pay for them. But what has happened is that a lot of condominiums like to keep their condo fees low. And years over years over years of keeping those condo fees low, they're running short on those reserves. And then how are you going to make this up? You have to special assess. And so that's why you're starting to see these special assessments. And then what happens? Everything starts culminating and coming, either you're going to have a really high condo fee, which you can see in this. They already have looks like $1 per square foot, which in this area, you're at about, in Arlington, about 60 cents a square foot is somewhere about what you're paying. And typically they're paid on a square foot basis. But this is like you're already paying $1 per square foot on the condominium fee, which includes these other special assessments that they've had over years. And typically with those, why it's, $175 per month until 2036 is because they took out a loan to cover it. And then every unit owner is then paying for that loan for the next 15 years to pay it off. Doubled on top of that was another one that they have in there of $140 a month till 2034. And now, because of this new law, they're being hit again saying you don't have enough in reserves. And there are so many things that now can happen because you don't have this money in reserves. And number one, as you're seeing with this sale, you can no longer get lending, all right? If a lender looks at this, they're like, we are not touching this because their value is, the reason a lender's giving you money is based on an appraisal and based on the fact that your property is going to be increasing in value, not decreasing in value. And unfortunately, with this condo right now, they're decreasing big time because of the new laws put in place. Now, you could argue that maybe these laws are a little too strict. Maybe they're going a little too hard on this. Why should we have $7 million in a reserve fund? And so I think what the law is saying is that you need a minimum of reserve funds. Is that really, do you know that?
What I read is that the association must fully fund the reserve fund and use it for structural repairs.
Yeah, so they've got to get these. And so I've sold a lot of condos, and Matt has sold a lot of condos in our years of doing this. And we will look at the reserve funds of buildings. I don't know exactly what they are, but I think the highest reserve funds that I've seen in a particular building was like $3 million. I don't think I've ever seen more than that. And a lot of times they're running out a few $100,000, like $500,000-$600,000. And some people think that that's enough. But when you actually think of the cost of doing some of these major repairs, it's not enough. You've got to be into the millions, I think, with these reserves. And what then happens is, your buildings get older and older and older, and these condo fees continue to rise and rise and rise. And then what happens is your condo fees get so high that not only with special assessments, but the condo fee itself is now pushing the affordability, and then it's pushing what? Your value down. So as the condo fees get more and more unaffordable, your value is going to start dropping conversely with that.
Well, oftentimes you don't have a choice. And, you know, the Belvedere, I think they had the special assessment of like $7 million. It was the pipe project.
To redo the pipes, yeah.
But the board will oftentimes give you an option. They'll give you like 4 options. And I mean, one of the options is pay the lump sum. And there's a story from Tampa where there's like a $60,000 assessment. And that, I think that is what they chose, is just pay the lump sum of $60,000. Everyone has to do it. Or you could do quarterly, or you could raise your condo fees. But no one wants to raise the condo fees because it's very hard to lower them at that point. So I don't think this is a story about how, you know, all HOAs are terrible and condos are stealing your money. It's more so a story about safety. I mean, we have to think, why was this law enacted? Well, it was enacted because a building collapsed and 98 people died. And so clearly something needed to change. I'm not as well versed in the condo reserve fees for Florida to understand if this is overkill. But another interesting fact is that if they do not follow these laws, the people on the board can be held personally liable. And so you're starting to see entire condo board members resign because they don't want anything to do with it. They may approve the plan and then resign. There was another story in Florida where the entire board, you know, resigned after this. So it's startling to see. And, you know, at the risk of, you know, sounding the alarm bells, you know, a buyer's not going to buy this. I think we're going to start to see some more foreclosures in Florida because I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And when you're faced with a 6-figure special assessment bill, all I can think about is this is going to end very poorly for a lot of homeowners.
Yeah, and the other thing that you brought up is the boards. You know, these people are responsible for running your building. You elect these people to run the building. And I've owned condos in the past, and I never wanted to be on the board. I think it's a ton of work that these people are put through. Not only that, or a lot of responsibility. They're doing it on the side. They're not getting paid for this, and they're running your building. And there are a lot of voices in this, and you might have certain people that are like, you know, that rule the board. You know, they're saying, no, we're going to do it my way or the highway, and they get their way. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. Sometimes your fees go up, and guess what? Then you have reserve funds that you can use. But other times people are like, I'm not paying more money to this reserve. I don't want to. Guess what happens now? Now you're stuck. So it's like you're relying on your neighbor to have the same voice that you do, or have the authority or the knowledge to actually run a building when they have never done this. And a lot of times you'll see lawyers and financial people get on boards, which is great. But still, it's like you have to have a higher knowledge of this stuff. And I'm a real estate, you know, I do sell real estate all the time. I still don't want to be on that board. There's a lot of responsibility. It's very time consuming. And I feel bad for the board members that are actually trying to run a good business and run a good thing and taking up a lot of their time, but you're still falling short. So you got to think, when you're a condo owner, there's a lot of headbutting going on to try to get these things. So this could have a big effect on condos everywhere. I mean, like if this starts breeding to other sections of the United States saying, wait a second, this is a problem. You know, this building that we're in right now, that we're recording in, was built in
1987. So it would, and it's 3 or more stories. It's not within 3 miles of a Florida coastline, but
it is within 3 miles of a river.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. But yeah, it is older, and you know, it could have structural issues. But yeah. I mean, I've looked at the reserve funds. They've been more than $3 million.
Have they?
It's a very well run and conservative board. I think a lot of people would actually fight me on that because people have strong opinions on boards.
Yeah.
Do you remember
what I'll say about this building is that it's huge. I mean, how many units are in here?
525.
525 units. So they should have that's probably the largest in Arlington as far as
one of the large. The Carlton has like a lot.
Yeah, North Arlington along the Orange Line. This is the largest building, and so they've got to have more than everybody else. So the smaller buildings could have less. Yeah.
Do you remember a couple of years ago we did a story about a place in Chicago? It was a decondoization where there were condos and then they sold out to a developer. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that could be an option here, because at what point does it make more sense to just say, hey, we just got to scrap it? Like if you're an owner, you have negative equity. You're staring down the barrel of a 6-figure bill. Do you need like a super majority? Do you need 85%? Do you need 100%? Do you need... It's obviously more than just the 6 people on the board voting. What do you slip a note under, slip a ballot under every single unit, and you get 85%, and if they agree to sell the condo, then every owner splits whatever proceeds there are?
That's honestly the best option.
Like we always think, all right, who is going to benefit? And we all know the answer. It's going to be a developer, right? It's going to be a developer buying waterfront property for pennies on the dollar. They're going to knock this disgusting 1970s, 1980s building down.
1975.
And try again. Yeah. Right? And build, the Ritz-Carlton, Aston Martin, Bentley, Bugatti condos.
It's a great location right on the water. It's I don't know this exact location, but it's a beautiful setting. And so that land alone has got to be worth a ton. And if your value has just dropped in half, basically in half, because of these special assessments, maybe it is better to just say, peace out, we're selling. This is tough. And, we are in a condo rich area, and, people are worried about their condo dues going up. I always say, like, I would rather special assess than raise the condo fee. If you can afford to pay the money up front, don't let your condo fee go higher, because it's just going to ruin your value. It hurts over time. We've been lucky in this area where we've seen rents rise along with the prices and the condo fees. So, it's kind of a trade-off where we haven't been hurt as much. But this could be the beginning of something bigger. Can we get into the other thing I wanted to talk about?
Yeah,
insurance.
Sure.
So the other topic about Florida that, and not only Florida, and we're going to get into kind of different sections of this, but the one thing is insurance. In Florida, it's becoming harder and harder for people to get insurance. And, there's all types of flood insurance, wind insurance, all this other stuff. But people are required sometimes to have the insurance to get a loan. They are required to have insurance to get a loan. And so a lot of these insurance companies are pulling out of Florida, or they're charging enormous amounts per month. And it's in some instances more expensive than the mortgage to get an actual policy on your property. But this brings up a couple different points, and points that I have become aware of in our local region, where I feel like insurance is the new issue. It's going to be the new problem with loans and getting loans for, and I don't want to raise any alarm bells. I don't want people to freak out. But there's small instances here and there that I'm seeing that we've never seen before.
What are you seeing?
So a friend of mine said that they helped a client get into a property, and the insurance company, after they settled, asked if they had done a home inspection, and they said yeah, and they asked the client, can you send the home inspection to us? They sent the home inspection to
red flag.
Yeah, to the insurance company, and the insurance company went through the inspection and noted maybe 15 different items and said, if you don't fix these 15 items, we will drop you as our insurance company. And I had never heard of that before. And so I was like, can they actually do that? Yeah, they can. They're the insurance company. So they gave them insurance first, but then they followed up and said, did you do a home inspection? Yeah, give it to me. I'm looking at it. Well, I'm insuring your property. I find these as problematic, and I'm not going to, I want to make sure you fix them so that, I'm not paying out all this money because of an insurance policy. So they ended up getting dropped by that insurance company, and they went and found another insurance company to follow up and give them a policy. All right. They did not have to give the home inspection. Another instance in the same group that I'm part of, the insurance company asked if they had done a home inspection. They said no. In this area, what do we see? Really prevalent in the spring market and in single family market, waived inspections. They said, no, we did not do an inspection. What did the insurance company do?
Just not give them a policy?
They sent out their own inspector.
Oh.
They sent out their own inspector to inspect the property. The inspector came up with a list of items and said, you fix or you no policy. and they dropped them. They had to find another insurance company. So I'm starting to see this like weird trend of insurance companies getting deeper and asking for these items and saying, well, we have skin in the game. You're paying us. And what ifs? We need to see these home inspections so that we have a brighter eye of what is wrong with this house. And so that brought up the conversation of waiving your finance contingency. You go and you waive your finance contingency. Part of that financing is getting insurance. You have to have an insurance policy the day you settle. You have to have insurance on that property. So what if you waive your finance contingency, you waive your home inspection contingency, and then you go under contract, you're trying to find insurance, and all of a sudden, no one will insure you. You can't go to settlement. You've waived your finance contingency. You've put a deposit on that contract. You can't settle because you can't find insurance for that property. You're in default of the contract. You can lose your deposit. You can be sued. So insurance is the underlying thing that you really need to start thinking about and get these policies. And believe me, I just did it. So I just settled on a waterfront property. And, it's not often that I'm buying property, and it's not often that I'm buying a waterfront property. This is my first time I bought a waterfront property. So I went to my insurance company that has my house, had my last house, has my cars, everything. And I'm like, they'll give me insurance. I call them and we start going through. I give them the address and they're going through all this different stuff. How old's the roof? They do ask you how old the roof is. They want to make sure that the roof isn't old. So that, again, insurance policies. But they're doing their research and they said, this is a waterfront property. And I said, yeah, it is. It's not in a floodplain. They're like, we don't insure it. We do not insure waterfront properties. So I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't know that. I thought, all right, if you don't need flood insurance, okay, then who cares, right? I don't need a separate policy for flood. I should be okay using anybody. You have to be careful. And so I went with a local company down there that insures a lot of the places down there, and I was able to find it. But what if you were in that situation that you found yourself not being able to get insurance? What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever come across anything like that?
Well, we've gone from like everyone wanting to give you insurance to like no one wanting to give you insurance
because of these big payouts in different areas because of hurricanes or because of, floods or whatever. And then all of a sudden it devastates these companies because what do insurance companies do or maybe do wrong is they need to diversify their properties, right? If they're insuring in one area and then something that's catastrophic happens, they're done.
Well, in research of the Florida condo market, I was looking at Florida homeowners insurance, and there's so many stories about people's homeowner insurance going up like 50%, sometimes even 75%, in the past couple of years. And, some owners are just going naked, right? They're going without a policy. Now, obviously, you have to have a policy in order to buy the house in the first place. So, yeah, I was thinking, have we had bad hurricanes? But I guess a lot of these companies are nationwide. And so, we're, the tornado damage in the Midwest, is eventually going to come back to, someone on the East Coast.
Yeah, no. So it's something to think about. It's not the alarm bells aren't going off yet, but it's like, think about it and make sure that you talk to your insurance company, maybe as you're going through this process, before you're going through this process. Hey, I'm looking to buy because, we do all the research and you have to have the policy set up. But a lot of times we rely on the lender to kind of say, all right, give us the next steps. But maybe you should be talking to your insurance company ahead of time and saying, hey, I'm thinking about a property here. This is the neighborhood I like. Are we going to have any problems? Do you have any issues with, anything, right? Just so we know, especially if you're waiving the finance contingency.
Definitely good points. Be sure to talk to your insurance company after you finish watching the rest of this episode. Shawn, let's move on to our next topic. This comes to us from Travel Weekly through many other sources. Barcelona.
I've never been. Have you?
I have not been to Barcelona. Barcelona to ban short-term rentals by the end of 2028. Okay, so here's the deal, Shawn. There are more than 10,000 short-term rentals, Airbnbs, in Barcelona. Jaume Kobani says that short-term rent, he's the Barcelona mayor, says that short-term rentals are Barcelona's largest problem. Okay? Think about all the problems that a major city would have, and you're going to tell me that short-term rentals are the largest problem? Sounds, pretty significant. I have not been to Barcelona. My brother has been to Barcelona, and when he went, he stayed in, you think he stayed in a hotel or an Airbnb? He stayed at an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Okay, and so he's, a gringo, and so he's walking by the front desk saying like, hola, like, ¿cómo estás? and the front desk is just like staring daggers at him. And then after like 2 or 3 nights, he checks out and he like finally looks at the Airbnb app and the directions say like, don't talk to the front desk, like whatever you do, because apparently it was like an unregulated Airbnb and he was like doing the exact opposite of what he should have done because he wasn't following directions.
Well, and that's a good point, right? Like condos, going back to condos, they usually typically have rules on how long you can rent these. And maybe this is the problem. Maybe it's not like, hey, we're just banning these, but maybe people have taken advantage of the condo rules and regulations and they're just saying, don't talk to anybody, just go up. Just keep your mind and just go up to the place and rent it. And these condo owners are going against their own condo policy, right? And so that could be one of the main factors of why this is starting to happen, why it is a problem.
So Barcelona may be looking at New York City, who recently banned Airbnbs. Now, what they're looking at is they're trying to get the market back to a point where these are becoming long-term rentals, where the local population can rent them out. They don't want to just have tourist districts inside their main city. And what Kobani is saying is that short-term rentals the city's rents have risen 68% in the past decade, and the cost to buy a home has jumped 38% in the same period. And I think we could look at a lot of cities and see that rents have risen significantly, cost to buy have risen significantly, and the amount of short-term rentals that have come on the market have risen significantly. So, New York City, banned Airbnbs. They went from 22,000 Airbnbs, Shawn, down to like 8,000, and then down to about like 4,000. So you can still have an Airbnb in New York City, but you basically have to like live there, and no one wants to stay at an Airbnb where like the host is living there. I think people are tired of that. Mm-hmm. What I'm thinking is, at what point are other cities going to catch on? Because oftentimes something that happens in New York City, that's like the first place something happens, and then it gets disseminated out. So do you see a future where large metro areas like Venice, like Florence, like Chicago are going to outright ban short-term rentals?
I mean, you can see the trend. It's starting to happen. Once one big, like New York City banning these is an amazing thing. Now, we have learned that they do have some weird laws in real estate that, of payments of rents and stuff like that. But it's really difficult for me because I understand that you don't want this touristy kind of thing in certain high rises, but at the same time, is this the reason that prices have gone up?
It's probably not the reason, but it's probably not going to hurt either. So in New York City, what do you think happened to hotel prices when they banned Airbnbs? They shot right up.
Yeah.
They went up at least 10%.
Who does that benefit?
Now, it only benefits one person, and that's the hotel operator.
Yeah.
But the thing is, New York City has over 130,000 hotel rooms, and Airbnbs make up like 20,000. So it's a very small market. So I'm not necessarily concerned about, oh my gosh, skyrocketing hotel prices, because that's the market. You're going to tell me that hotel prices in New York rise in the summer? Oh, shocker. Yeah, color me shocked. I think they'll go back down in the winter. I think if more people go, they'll go up. If less people go, they'll come back down. What I'm more concerned about is
the trend.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's put this back on the open market. Let's get some more long-term rentals. And I think what the article was saying is that a lot of the New York Airbnbs that you have to rent for for longer than 30 days if you're going to not live there. So they took it off the Airbnb short-term rental market and they put it on basically the medium-term market. So it's not necessarily, it's now affordable housing or it's now on the open market. It's now more geared toward the 30-day or longer stays.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how often are people actually staying in New York for 30 days or more? I mean, I guess there could be, but that's a really like segmented section
Right.
of the people that are actually going to use it. So you crippled that industry. And, the people that this actually hurts are the people that bought it for this reason. They're thinking, I want to rent this out. Now they're getting, a significantly less for that. Now, that's the risk you take in buying places. I just bought one. I'm probably going to Airbnb it, but Could they stop that in a county, in a neighborhood, in an HOA? Yeah, anybody can stop and make these raw laws. If you make a couple neighbors angry, they're going to complain. They complain to the board changes something. It's the same thing with, you can go wider and wider with the government, the city government. You complain to the government enough about problems with Airbnbs and they're causing problems in buildings and this other stuff. Well, that's what gets you banned. That's what stops it. And so, yes, I can see this happening in other areas that they're big in. And that's just the name of the game. Our real estate changes constantly. And it's not just real estate itself. It's the trends of real estate. It's the trends of the tech real estate. And what can be amazing one year can flop the next year, and you just never know. So be careful when you're buying something and thinking you're going to Airbnb it. I have people reach out to us. We have people reach out to us saying, hey, can you find me an Airbnb? And I'm like, no, not in this area. If it's a condo, you can't do it. There's very few. I don't know of any, really.
I think as a Airbnb host and as a lover and user of the platform, I have always been on the side of short-term rentals do not belong in major metro downtown areas. I think, like I said previously, a hotel in New York, they have figured out that business model. We don't need more unique options, stays. Like, we need those if you're traveling with your family to Yosemite National Park and you can rent out, a house, or if you're in, Branson, Missouri on a golf trip or something, you want to rent out a big thing on a bluff. But as for like apartments in a big city, it's just not necessary. We don't need to turn apartment buildings into hotels. I don't think we need to do that. And Shawn, I think I found in Arlington the most whimsical apartment Airbnb. Okay, so this is the Harry Potter, Gryffindor, Hogwarts themed Airbnb, and
this
it gets
is hilarious.
It gets pretty terrible reviews because it's in such an old building. You're looking at the furnishings. It's like on Route 29 in probably a 1960s building with no washer and dryer. And then, you walk through the hallways and then you walk in and there's a couple things that remind you about Harry Potter. But I could not despise listings like this more simply because it makes no sense. This is like a long-term apartment that honestly would rent for like half of Arlington could afford this rent because it's just a little bit older, and they've turned it into Harry Potter Hogwarts disaster.
That is pretty much a disaster, and that building I've seen once. I'm familiar with it. I couldn't tell you where it is, what the deal is with it, but yeah, it's an older building and not a very well done Harry Potter.
I think more cities are just going to look at Barcelona, look at New York City, and say, yeah, all right, if they did it, yeah, we should do it too. Just ride the coattails of other jurisdictions that are doing something. Is progressive the right word? Doing something forward thinking, because they're not saying, hey, Barcelona's not saying, hey, it's banned tomorrow. They're going to say, hey, at the end of 2028. So, quote unquote, get your affairs in order until then, figure out what you're going to do with your property, and then move forward in 2029.
Yeah, tough one. Beach towns, I think they'll be the last ones because it's a different set. It's a different idea, and it was always built on that. But the cities, the downtown centers that weren't built for that, and the buildings weren't built for that, and you're seeing that. I could understand them. Like
I said, destinations, national parks, kind of that rural retreat, 2-hour driving range from a big city. Sure. I'm a fan of, regulate, tax, have open discussions on it. But as for a place where people are like living and like trying to make it and like a densely populated area, it's simply not necessary.
Yeah, you're right. It's a weird feeling.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Obviously, a lot of discourse can be had on this topic, and we're curious to hear where you stand on it. All right, Shawn, let's move on to in or out, whether you are in or out on a house. And I have a celebrity house coming up. Okay,
nice.
Do you know whose house this is on Lucy Lane in McLean?
I'm thinking a hockey player.
You're incorrect. This is Stephen Strasburg's house, the Washington Nationals ace. Stephen Strasburg, who was the World Series MVP in 2019, signed a $275 million contract in 2020, and also bought this home in McLean for $5 million in 2020, is now listed for $9.75 million. Shawn, let me introduce you to 6727 Lucy Lane. 6 bedrooms, 10 baths, 11,000 square feet, almost 12,000 square feet. This extraordinary home nestled on a private 1-acre lot in Langley Forest, ding, 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 Langley Forest, was built in 2020 by artisan builders and further customized by the current residents. The beautiful landscaping setting, beginning with the gated entrance with stacked stone walls leading to a slightly elevated grounds, a perfect complement to the stunning 6-bedroom, 11,000 square foot house. It goes on in many details to describe the wood beams, the butler's pantry, the open foyer, the atrium doors leading out to the pool compound, the pool house, the garden beds. It essentially has everything that you would ever want in a $10 million house, including the home office area, 2 half baths, laundry room, mudroom, and an oversized 4-car garage. Full security system, landscaping, lighting, and Sonos system, whole house generator, irrigator system are all included in this very special offering. Shawn, for $9.75 million, are you in or out on Strasburg's house? Be sure you see the waterfall in the back as well.
Dang, man, this place. All right, so when did he buy it?
He bought it in 2020.
2020, and he's flipping it 4 years later for almost double the price.
When you say flipping, he had surgery, right? He had his shoulder was falling off the socket. The dude pitched 30 innings since signing the $275 million contract. That's 5 games.
That's crazy.
He won the MVP, but unfortunately, it's just falling apart by the end of it. So.
I will tell you that this house is gorgeous. Everything about it screams modern, just sophistication. I love the pool. I love this house. I mean, is it worth $10 million? I don't know. Probably. I don't know. I mean, bought it in 2020. I don't think it's worth $10 million. I'll pay slightly less than that, but I'm buying this thing. This is right up my alley. I love the vaulted ceilings. I love the windows. Everything is very tastefully done. There's not anything whimsical about this one.
Shawn doesn't like whimsical, doesn't like old.
The pool is amazing. The pool house, just amazing. They've got a gym. The woodwork, everything screams modern touches and really well done. Whoever did this house, kudos. So I would buy this house. Absolutely. I'm in.
But you're not in for 9.75.
Yeah, I don't know the value, so I'll just throw out. I'll pay $8 million for it because I think he bought it for $5 million. He probably put another $1 million into it, $6 million. Maybe it increased in value. I'm not going over $8 million.
But why does it matter what he bought it for? What if he bought it for $10 million?
It definitely matters what he bought it for because that gives you a basis of what the value is. And I'm not going to buy it because he's a celebrity, because it's his house. If he bought it for $5 million 4 years ago, then it's increased to X percent. I'm not going to pay more. But than that.
what if it was gifted to him for $0 4 years ago?
Well, I mean, it wasn't. So I'm basing my price based on what he paid for it. So I'll go above, but I don't think it's worth the $9.
I just don't understand how the price of what someone bought it for dictates the current value.
Well, it absolutely does. If you go back and you say, all right, this person bought this property for X amount of dollars, and then we see what the market has done for this type of property over the last 4 years, we can extrapolate what its value is. That's what algorithms do. So an algorithm, I'm going to base the value on algorithms, on comparable sales. Now, what I can't compare is what he has done to the property, how much he has put into the property. And I can say it's probably pretty significant. Because it's gorgeous, and I don't know what the builder supplied in the original and then what he put in afterwards. Did he put the pool in afterwards? Did he put the pool house? Did he add those things over the last couple of years? I don't know. So those are the factors that I'm going to have to really research to get my final price, I guess, Matt. So let's just say that I'm buying the property. I'm buying it.
All right, you can ask Strauss how much he paid for every single fixture and every single tree that he planted.
Maybe it was like, maybe that's all he paid was $6 million, $5 million, and that was it. And now we're overpaying for it.
And then it increased in value by 78% since he last bought for 5.4.
That's right.
Shawn, I love the compound aspect. I love being in the backyard in Northern Virginia and looking out and not seeing anyone else.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. I'm also in. And I'm also in for not 9.75. But it makes me think, a couple of years ago, I think we would look at the price of $5 million and be like, oh my God, I could never imagine $5 million. I'm having a hard time coming around on 9.7. I think in a couple of years, I may say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe these were only 9.7. Now they're 13. Now they're 15.
Yeah.
Because we got to think for Northern Virginia, like being in McLean, I mean, that's goals, Langley Forest.
Beautiful.
Like that is the spot to be. That's where anyone who's anyone wants privacy, wants their compound, wants their family unit. That's where you go. And to be able to get that for only 9.7 when, if Strauss is on the Dodgers, right? If he's, in playing for the Yankees, he's got to shell out a lot more money for something this good or better. So, I'll maybe go slightly above you at 8.25, but I think I'm around that range as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good deal, man. I think maybe we could split it, Matt. I don't know. You gonna beat me out? He's gonna beat me out. He beat me out by $250,000.
I'm gonna throw in a little escalation
Bastard.
clause.
He knew my deal and he beat me out.
Yeah, that's why I asked you first. All right. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below if you would buy Strauss's house. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.